I'm Rachel, the low-carb cake decorator. If that sounds like a conflict of interest to you, well, it kind of is, but it's where I am in life right now. I've always had a passion for cake decorating since I got cake decorating lessons from my cousin's grandmother at age 10 and just kind of went from there with really enjoying it, keeping it as a side business till even now. Right now I'm 30 years old. Don't look it, but that's the way I am. Nice genetics. Thanks, Mom and Dad. But recently, about 2.5 months ago, my husband found a book on the internet that he wanted to read, and then he wanted me to read. That book was Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes, and it really gave us some insight into that we might not have this whole health thing down correctly. When I thought we were eating very healthy, I try to cook nice healthy meals. We've been married at that point about a year, and I've been cooking healthy meals, things like he would have peanut butter and jelly every day for lunch, in addition to other things. He has a big appetite. And that peanut butter and jelly was made on my own whole wheat grain that I had ground in my wheat grinder. So it was pretty much the best bread that you could get. And then for dinner, we'd have something like a stir fry over brown rice, or whole wheat spaghetti with pasta sauce that I had made from the tomatoes in our garden. So we ate pretty good, but this book suggested that a lot of those things, such as the brown rice and the whole wheat bread, while they might have been a little bit better for you, those still spiked your blood sugar and caused the release of insulin. And insulin, part of its job is to store the extra energy that can't be used at the time, and it stores it as fat. I personally have never had a fat problem. I've always been thin, gained a few pounds during puberty, but nothing major. So it wasn't a big issue for me. I could eat whatever I wanted within reason. I didn't eat tons of ice cream and cake, though I did have them. And when I did have them, they didn't tend to make me overweight. But I just realized that those things are still not the best. Right? Having your blood sugar constantly going up and down and up and down is just not the best for it. And in some cases, it can actually cause diabetes and other things like that. But anyway, so just decided to go low carb, and then also along with that realized that fat was not nearly as bad as we had thought before. I never completely jumped on the bandwagon that all fat was bad. But I did try to cook with fairly little fat, using things like butter and oil sparingly. I did know that I didn't want to be using vegetable oils already. I knew that those could, under high heat, go into trans fats, which I already knew didn't like. But I started realizing that actually fat as a source of energy was a wonderful thing. It doesn't spike your blood sugar. It stays in your system kind of as a sustained energy for longer than the carbohydrates, which when you eat them, you have more of a surge of energy and then it's gone before too long. So we learned about this process that the body can go through, which is called ketosis, which is where it ends up burning fat for your energy instead of carbohydrates. We haven't completely cut carbohydrates out of our diet. To do that would require us eating only meat and pure fat. And while some studies actually suggest that you can live healthfully on those things, we don't have a desire to live just on those things. But we do try to keep our carbohydrate to ideally under 20 grams of carbohydrate a day. Our average American diet is close to 300, from what I've heard. But realistically, we don't always stay at 20 carbohydrates, probably closer to 30, depending on whether you're talking about me or my husband and how much food we consume. But we keep our carbohydrates to things like leafy vegetables and the small amounts found in cheese and other foods like that. So we eat a lot of very delicious foods, eat lots of the things that we can eat, which is what you should focus on, what you can eat, not what you can't. We can eat all kinds of meat. We do dairy, with the exception of we don't drink plain milk that still is fairly high in carbohydrates. But we do things like cheese and full-fat cream in our foods. Also eat lots of eggs, all varieties of ways to prepare those. Lots of salads, lots of other vegetables. You have to be careful with which vegetables because some of them are very high in carbohydrates. So if you're going to eat them, you need to eat a very small amount. And we have can always have some types of nuts and seeds and a few fruits. We mostly avoid fruit, but berries are lower in carbohydrates, so you can have those in moderation. I eat lots of avocados. Those are technically a fruit. Those are delicious. Foods like avocado can technically be high in carbohydrates. The average avocado having 17 carbohydrate grams in it. But one thing that you learn is that the thing called fiber, which I'm sure you've heard of, is actually an undigestible carbohydrate, meaning that it goes through your system without spiking your blood sugar and just moves along. So if you are calculating your carbohydrate content, you get to subtract the fiber from the total carbohydrates. So in the case of an average avocado, there's 13 grams of fiber. So if you take 17 grams of carbohydrate, subtract 13, then you're left with only 5 grams of carbohydrate. So and those, you have to learn how to do that with all of your foods and subtracting the fiber. Otherwise, you're going to end up reaching whatever carb content you have set for yourself very early on. But the fiber doesn't matter. Well, I mean, it does matter. It's good for you. You want to consume enough fiber, otherwise you might have some issues. I do most of the food preparation. I did that before. I don't have a full-time job, and my husband does, and I also know more about cooking, and I'm happy to do it. He does cook from time to time, but I'm predominantly the person who provides the food. So, but I cook all kinds of delicious things. We end up having meals that you wouldn't think that you could have on low carb. You just have to adjust them a little bit. I made a great fettuccine alfredo the other day. Made it a couple of times. I really like that. The noodles are not traditional wheat pasta noodles. They're actually predominantly made out of eggs and cream cheese. I know that sounds a little strange, but trust me, they're delicious. I'll show you a picture sometime, or maybe I'll make a video of making them for you. But they're really tasty. We can have things like that. We have a lot of salads. I have salad at least once a day, sometimes twice. And watching which vegetables go in it, because things like carrots are to be had in extreme moderation. So I don't currently have any in the house. Well, we'll probably eventually have a little bit of them, but most of the time are salads. Contain things like all different types of lettuce greens, which are very low carbohydrates, romaine lettuce and spinach and kale, things like that, and then have a few seeds and homemade salad dressing that has no sugar in it. Definitely avoiding all of the sugar. The only sweetener that we currently use is called stevia. Stevia comes from a plant that is extremely more sweet than sugar, so as such you only use a tiny amount. I use that in making all kinds of delicious things, such as I've made a low-carb chocolate cake. I make chocolate peanut butter bombs. Those are kind of like candy for us. They're very tasty. I keep them in the freezer, and we just pull them out whenever you need a small snack. Those are made out of coconut oil and butter, cocoa, stevia, and a few other minor ingredients. Those are really tasty. We find that we're not feeling deprived for the most part. Occasionally when we go out to eat or go out with friends at their house, it does get a little bit annoying when you see the foods that you should not consume, but focus on what you can have and plan ahead. I always make sure to bring food that works for us and that it's really tasty and good. Sometimes I share it with other people and they're really impressed. I've made a lot of things that other people are like, whoa, this is good. Low carb does not have to mean deprived. But so that's my life right now, doing a lot of low carb things and then still doing things like cake decorating for customers that have no desire to be low carb. But I thought I'd show you a couple of cakes. These are not actually real cakes. These are styrofoam, but I really decorated. This was made for a wedding expo that I was at and advertising my services. So this is a little bit of a different two-tone design, and decorated that a couple months ago. And this one was for the same event. and little butterflies and design there. So just some examples of work that I can do. The butterflies I did not make. Those are an edible wafer paper that I purchased. But so anyway, my husband and I are continuing on this low carb journey, expecting to continue to enjoy the results of that as we continue to get even more our bodies adapted to this ketosis that we are in, which is where we are burning fat instead of burning sugar. Is basically the simplified version of what that means, because your body converts carbohydrates into sugar. So no matter whether it was actually white table sugar or whether it was bread, it turned to sugar. Obviously, we still have a small amount of those in some of the few carbohydrates that we do eat, but predominantly we are burning fat, and we actually consume somewhere around 60 to 70% of our calories from fat, and then get a moderate amount of protein and a very small amount of carbohydrates, and we're feeling good, loving it, and it's doing good things. The common sense says that, well, not so common, but the predominant theme says if you eat that much calories from fat, you are going to get fat. Do I like fat to you? I do not like fat. I have not gained weight since we started this. I actually have lost a couple of pounds that I think was due to water retention. I'm not trying to lose weight personally, but I intend to stay at a healthy weight. If something were to change on that, if I was to see that this diet was being bad for us, and just to clarify, it's not a diet, it's a way of eating. We're tending to continue on this way and not just make it for a short time. So if I were to see that it was harming either one of our healths, then we would stop or figure out what aspect of it was wrong. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to comment and ask those, and just continue to hang around. I plan to do more videos about both how it is affecting myself, if there's anything significant, and the foods that I make, and just adventures in cake decorating and the low-carb world. I'll be curious to see if long-term this low-carb way of eating affects different things, such as I've always had very fine hair. As you can see, there's not that much there. I don't know if it will affect it, if it will get a little bit thicker or not change at all. I'll be curious to see how I do on our next backpacking trip, unsure of the date on that, and see if I have a lot even more energy and more ability to go more miles. We're trekking around with about 30 pounds on our backs, but I'm looking forward to those types of things, and I will let you know how those go after the fact. My parents right now are actually on a big adventure. They are not low carb, so I can't comment to that, but they are out traveling by bicycle from the west coast of the United States to the east coast, and just flew out yesterday. So if they happen to see this, hi Mom and Dad, good luck, have a lot of fun, and I hope it's going awesome as you get ready on your first full day of your bike trip. And so stick around, ask any questions that you might have, and hope to see you on future videos. Bye!